With that, I invite you to climb aboard. We'll take another trip along the Morrow Railroad line. Show you how I, strip the paint off your old number 7, kind of get it ready for its rebirth.
This train am bound for glory. This train am bound for glory. This train.
Hey there, my name's David Mays, your host for this edition of Along the Morrow Railroad Line, program where we talk about the fun you can have playing with trains. And I'm certainly having some fun. I hope you're having some fun too. Okay. What I'm doing this video, continuing the saga of the repair of old number 7 and LMB models brass 242 switching engine. Been doing these series of videos, been doing some repairs on it, and part of the process of making repairs is so I need to go and remove the old paint, kind of strip it off so I can make some repairs, make some other changes. You see here, this here's old number 7. I've already stripped the paint off, so through a little bit of video magic rig, I kind of go back in time. I'll show you actually how I did get the paint removed. A lot of my own modeling, I like to take a locomotive, make little minor changes on it, maybe repaint it, paint a different road name, railroad name, or whatever. And so one of the important things I have to do is to strip the paint. And of course, a lot of people may get a model that they like, but they want it lettered for a different railroad. So again, you have to just strip the paint off and then repaint it and re-letter. Put decals on, kind of like I said in a previous video. And depending on the model, I have to use different ways of doing it. Most people prefer a chemical way of doing it. So like what these things we have here. Of course, the important thing there being is to make sure the what you're using matches the material the model is made out of. I mean, this is brass, so you can actually use some pretty strong paint remover on it. Whereas these other models, which I had stripped recently, have to use something else that'll be compatible with the plastic they're made of. Because otherwise, if I used what works for this brass engine on one of these, I'd probably end up with this glob of plastic instead of a model. So I'll kind of touch on that later during the video. Actually, real quick, Bachmann Spectrum passenger car. Well, I just stripped the paint off of it. I'm going to repaint it, relay it from my own, freelance railroad. And over here, I got this tender body, which is actually basically a train set car. Originally had the word Clementine printed on it, but the model's got some nice detail on it. So again, I'm going to strip the paint off. I'll just put this in a parts box, save it for later for a future project. So anyway, with that, I invite you to climb aboard. We'll take another trip along the Morrow Railroad line. Show you how I, strip the paint off your old number 7, kind of get it ready for its rebirth. So, like I was saying earlier, I'm going to show you how I'm going to be stripping the paint off of this brass engine. It's been the subject of these videos. What I'm calling the rebuilding old number 7. It's an LMB models, model train of a small switching engine, a 242, as you probably have seen some of the earlier videos. And like I said, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I'm going to strip the paint off of it, get it ready for some additional repairs, and also changing some of the details. Going to be stripping the boiler and cab along with the frame, and of course also stripping the paint off the tender and of course its underbelly or frame, like that. So I got some other parts from the engine which I'll be stripping later. They're real small, so I'll just kind of do them separately. I'll show you the tools here. First tool I'm using is this, basically what is a cardboard. It's actually the lid to a file box. Okay, find those are real handy. Another tool. Got this little plastic tray. There's several restaurants, you take some leftovers home, they'll give you a plastic tray or one of those styrofoam ones. And a lot of times I'll go and keep these. You'll clean them up and keep them because they're real handy for, well, taking food with you, go or your lunch at work. And of course for things like this. There you go, like that. Put that there. Other tools, going to be, of course, the paint stripper itself. Going to be using this brand. It's Testor's ELO, I guess. It stands for Easy Lift Off. Basically, their brand of paint remover. Made for use with, quote unquote, model paints. Personally, I've never used this. I've used some other brands of paint stripper and it worked fine. But I decided I'd give this one a try. So in a way, this is going to be kind of also a review about how well this product works for stripping paint. And the paint itself, obviously I don't know what brand paint this was used to paint this, whoever owned it previously. My guess would be either what's called Floquil or Polyscale. Was a brand of popular hobby paints that were around for years, but they're currently no longer available. If you want to look up the history and the story behind that, internet search will give you all the information. Other tools, some brushes. Got a couple of these old brushes here. Kind of got bristles are kind of stiff, and a couple of these more brushes here for actually scraping the paint off as the remover works out. I bought these at a hardware store years ago. They had a whole box of them, probably charging $1 for them. I think these brushes are used for cleaning guns. So you got the big bristles here on this end. It's got some little notch right there. And you got some little ones here on the end where you kind of get in there, the little tight spots. And got this little strainer right here. What I'll do is, after you get through straining stripping the parts, I'll just stick them in there, stick them over the faucet. If you haven't figured out, I'm actually in the bathroom here at the house. And so, got plenty of counter space, place here, and wash stuff off. Like I said, you put the models, in here when I actually rinse them off. Make sure if just by chance any parts fall off, they'll be caught in here and not end up, down the drain. And other tool, basically just some rubber gloves. I mean, as far as other stuff, it's not so toxic. You gotta just, keep at arm's reach from you, do anything. But ideally, you don't want to be, soaking your hands in that stuff. So, anyway, so let's go and get started. Move that over there. Okay, so get started here. Got the tray there. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to pour just a little bit here in the tray. Kind of get enough. Just set these things in there. Just kind of start to let them soak. So I got take the paint off the tray. Bottom right there. Here. Same thing with the tinder. Dip it down and it just starts doing like that. Give it a few minutes to soak in. And I can already see some of the paint maybe starting to come off. And so you already got some spots, paint's already been peeling off this thing for a while. Cover it up. Stop here a minute, let those things soak. And we'll come back in a few minutes and see how we're going. Okay, here's check, see how this has been doing. I've let this thing soak for the last hour or so. Kind of take a look what we got here. Let's see, got the boiler right there. Rub on it with the brush. What I'm going to do, go and take the rest of the ELO paint remover, not to be confused with band, Electric Light Orchestra. I'm just going to just pour the rest of this in. Make sure everything's covered by the fluid. Take the stopper out. There you go. Just put it all in there so I can get a good soak. Again, just give this thing a chance to soak for a while. This may take a while to get all this stuff come loose because it's on there good. But we got the time. I'm just going to put this lid back on it. And like I said, come back a couple hours, check on it. If there's anything worth showing, I'll turn the camera on so you can see it. Otherwise, I'll just check it. If it still needs it to soak some more, I'll let it do that, and then we'll come back later. So. Let's open this up, see what we got here. There. Like I said, I got the model right here. Can't see what's been there. Well, what happened is, like I said, I was trying to use the ELO, and quite frankly, it basically wasn't working. Okay, it was working. It was, I could tell the paint was getting softer and coming off, but it was very slow. Like I said, the ELO really didn't work for this, but that doesn't mean ELO does not work. It actually works great. What I did as an experiment, I took this tender body and was able to strip it out like, real easy. This is from a Tyco so-called Clementine steam engine. If you've ever seen one of these, it's got the word Clementine printed on the side. Well, this stuff, it worked great taking this paint off. So, like I said, in this case, it works fine. Just like I said, if you're dealing with some old lacquer paint, which you think what flow quill is, lacquer, and like I said, probably 50 years old or something, it may be some issues. But something like this, like I said, worked real good. So I'll keep this handy for other models. I think when it comes right down to it, it's very simple. This model is like 60 years old, and the paint was probably at least 50 years old. So like it was on there good. And well, I could say, yeah, it was coming off a little bit at a time. Like I said, it was just taking a long time to do it. So what I ended up doing, did some experimenting. Took the models, the engine stuff out of the box, rinsed it off, stuck it in this other tray. And as an experiment, let it soak for a few days in some of this rubbing alcohol. This happens to be 91%. But like I said, just for the heck of it, try soaking it for a few days in some rubbing alcohol. And again, yeah, you could tell it was doing something, but not great. Again, rubbing alcohol works great for the paint over certain models. Here, just showing off. This is a Bachmann Spectrum Series passenger car. It was originally painted blue in the Baltimore and Ohio scheme. And again, I wanted to remove the paint, and the alcohol worked great. Again, let it soak for a day or two, the paint's just peeling off. And decided I put new trucks on this car, but that's a different story. Anyway, so these work, but not in this particular situation where, like I said, I'm trying to strip this old brass model. So what I ended up doing, went over to the hardware store and got me a can of this stuff, something called Goof Off. It's apparently use it to remove, it says here asphalt and tar, glue, adhesive and glue, and it's dried latex paint. Well, of course, it's not latex, but I figured I'd give it a try anyway. And overall, it actually done a lot better. I mean, obviously, this is a lot stronger than these other things, so I figured since this is all metal, this should work fine. I mean, if I was trying to use this on plastic, I'd probably end up with a glob of melted plastic in the bowl. so yeah, use the ELO for that. But for this is actually seems to be working fine. Again, I've been letting this stuff soak for a while, and paint's coming off. Again, there's still some paint on there. So basically, what I'm going to do here is, here in a minute, I'm going to stop recording, move the camera, reposition it, and then just show you, getting in there with some brushes and other implements of destruction, go and get the rest of the paint off. So like I said, give me a minute, move the camera, and we'll, like I said, finish stripping the paint off this model. Alrighty, here we're going to get started. Like I said, just going to invite you to just sit back and watch while I finish getting the paint stripped off this model. A little safety thing here. I mean, this paint remover is, reading the instructions, isn't particularly toxic, but at the same time, it kind of does suggest avoiding prolonged contact with the skin. So just take some basic precautions. So let's go and get started. Just pop this open. Like I said, just invite you to sit back and relax and enjoy the show. Alrighty, well, I hope you enjoyed that little trip along the Mile Railroad line. Again, talk about how I removed the paint from mold number 7, again, getting it ready for some additional repair work, kind of get it back on the tracks. Again, talk about issues, issues and what worked and what didn't work with the paint remover. Okay. Yellow actually is a good paint remover, just in this case, just did not work in this specific situation. Whereas this product, Goof Off, actually did a pretty good job. So just make a mental note about that for future reference. Anyway, like I said, future plans now, probably more videos. Going to be talking about how I'm going to make some repairs to old number 7. As I think I've talked about in some previous videos, looking over the engine, it either got dropped, somebody dropped it, or they stepped on it, or something fell on it, or whatever, because there is some damage to it. So far, everything looks repairable. A spot here where the headlight was ridged on the boiler. There's literally a hole there where something tore the brass. So again, we'll see about fixing that. Still got some little bits of paint still need to remove. Basically, just have to get in there with a point of a knife, a little tiny screwdriver, toothpick, whatever, and just kind of see and pick that out. But it'll still come out. It'll be a lot easier to pick out now. And when all is said and done, if there's a little bit of paint kind of tucked down in the corner, not really hurting anything, just leave it there. Like I said, it won't hurt anything. So like I said, it'll be subject for future videos. And again, continuing the saga of getting old number 7 back on the line. So, and again, special shout out to all feedback I've been getting about the show. Definitely appreciate that. A lot of good feedback. And of course, the routine: like, subscribe, leave comments. I mean, what's been your experience when you had to strip paint off a model? What worked for you? Things like that. So, and whatever, any other suggestion you might have about how, getting old number 7 back on the track. So, again, with that, thank you again. Thank you for watching. I'll be back soon with some more videos about old number 7 or maybe some other subject. Whatever speaks to me in the time. So again, with that, stay tuned and we'll climb aboard, take another trip along the Mile Railroad line. In the meantime, you'll go out and have some fun with your own trains. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
This train am bound for glory. This train am bound for glory. This train is bound for glory. Won't ride nothing but the righteous and the holy.